With a recent proliferation of chibi tanks by Meng, Fujimi, Platts, and some others, it was only a matter of time before somebody else got involved. And so the latest series comes to us from Doyusha. So the first four in the series. Volume 1 is the KV-2, Volume 2 is an M4 Sherman, Volume 3 is a Sturmtiger, Volume 4 is Tiger 1. Unlike Meng's World War II series, Doyusha seems to have just cut right to the chase and gone straight for pastel colors and cute characters and things like that. You will not find any kind of real world decals in these sets. So if you want to do them in a realistic manner, you're going to have to source decals from somewhere else. 1/48 scale tanks will be pretty close. So if you either have leftover decals from maybe some of Tamiya's 1/48 scale kits or just plain aftermarket, those should do fine for what you want to do. But of course, if you want to just do cute designs right off the bat, Doyusha's got you covered. So let's take a look at each one of these in an open box situation and see what we come up with. So first we're going to start with the KV-2. Opening the KV-2 box, we see right away that it's actually kind of has a double baffling for the box itself. It's actually kind of nice. Gives it a little bit of extra durability. You can see right away that it's compartmentalized for different parts of the tank. The instructions are full color and nicely illustrated. Very, very Meng-like as far as how it's done. The layout in the back, you'll be able to see that the decal placement. Of course, the decals are very whimsical, much like the later series pastel versions of Meng's stuff. So if we look inside, we can see that it's interesting how they've actually molded the body of the actual tank, and that what you have is the lower chassis section, and the fenders are actually built in, and in kind of a strange way of doing things, the upper hull kind of goes inside of where the fenders are, with the rear stowage cases kind of goes in between the fender stanchions. So kind of a strange idea. Now what's interesting is looking here for what the turret sits on top of. You can see there's kind of a goes around. It's very slightly has like a kind of like a hilly design, I guess, like a raised curve design. What that is when you put the turret on, the gun will, when you fit the gun into the turret and then you put the turret on top, the gun will actually have a little rod that comes off the back that will ride along this edge. Let me get the pointer here. The gun will actually ride, the rod will ride along this edge, so that as you turn the turret, the gun barrel will raise and lower. So that's kind of the idea behind that. So kind of a neat little idea. It is not tied into as you roll the tank along, you know, for anybody who was wondering about that. I guess if somebody wants to be really industrious and fix a couple of gears in there, you could probably totally do that, because it is round here. So you could probably you know, set up a gear, driving another gear that would go up and rotate it around. But I'm not anywhere near that industrious, so it's up to you. Now we go in here. Here, as we can see, 2 sets for the road wheels. Now, what else is interesting about this, about the Doyusha kits, is that unlike Meng's kits, where they basically only give you kind of like one set of road wheels. Like on a Meng model, what you would have would be like the KV2. You wouldn't really have as many road wheels here, and like on like a Sherman, for example, you would only get one batch of road wheels. On these, they give you a little bit more. It's kind of like Fujimi. They kind of split the difference a little bit, so you'll get more road wheels with these kits than you do with Mengs. So let's go back to looking at the pieces. So here we have different parts of towing, hitches and hubs and things like that. Here we have probably the most interesting part of these kits. This is what actually really caught my eye, was the track links. And what's interesting about these is they kind of almost look like individual tracks. Well, which they are. It's just they're not actually joined by any kind of clicking or anything. They actually have a very small string that runs down in between the tracks. It's kind of hard to see. And that string is actually what makes the tracks join together. So the tracks themselves actually are not locked in together. There's no pins that run between them or anything like that. These strings are what holds it all together. So, and then what's interesting is at the very end, the very last tracks, they actually do have, I'm not going to take them out of here because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get them back in. There actually are little holes drilled in on the ends of each set. It's really hard to see the ones here. But the idea behind that is, after you put the tracks on, you then slide in these little pins on the end. So that basically the beginning of the track run and the end of the track run, they actually do have pins holding them together. But the rest of them are held together by the strings. And so, as a result of that, Doyusha claims, at least on the box, that you should be able to run the tanks along the floor. Now, obviously, I don't know how. Haven't built it yet, so I don't know how that's going to pan out. But it's interesting to think about. Maybe kind of interesting to motorize one of these. Basically got something else. Maybe make a remote control. Got one of the other smaller remote control tanks out there, and have a remote control chibi tank. Because after all, you do have real, actual dry sprockets with these, so it wouldn't be hard, once again, for somebody so industrious. But again, maybe that person is not me, though. So, last but not least, here's the gun. And finally, here are the decals. Nice to see actual water slide decals, not stickers or anything weird like that. So, really, what we have here is a pretty professional operation for what it is. Meng's kits seem to have, more overall detail, a lot more separate pieces and stuff, but, just separate hatches, for example. But I was pretty impressed with the fact that, this actually does have actual, the periscope openings actually are open. And, the vision slots and things like that. But, yeah, if you want to add a crew or anything like that, yeah, you're going to have to do some surgery because the hatches are not separate on these kits. Kind of a little bit of a letdown in that respect. So, especially when, of course, the cover art actually shows little animals sitting inside. So, unlike the Meng kits where you actually could potentially, or even Fujimi, where you could actually potentially put something inside, in this it's going to require some surgery. But, once again, though, the gimmick of the rotating, rotating the turret and having the gun barrel going up and down, that's kind of neat. And, of course, the track links are really pretty cool. Really pretty cool, too. So, I guess really you can almost say maybe perhaps the ultimate thing somebody could do is maybe combine parts from both of them. The big difference is the size differences. This is slightly smaller than Meng's KV2. Sorry, I don't have that around to show. It's been packed up. I'm in the process of moving. On the other hand, I will be able to show and compare and contrast the Shermans because I haven't packed my Sherman yet. So, on to volume 2 in the series, which is the Sherman. Okay, volume 2, Sherman. So what we have here, once again, we have the double baffled box. I think from now on, for the rest of these, just know that the rest of them have this kind of box. So after this one, I'll just start with the parts laid out. So, with this, unlike Meng's Sherman, which depicts a cast body, basically an M4A176W, this one depicts the M4 type with just a welded body. So if we take a look at that, we can see here it's got more of the straight sides where the individual plates have been welded together. Once again, as with the KV2, we have the ring where it's got the curvature on it, so that way as you turn the turret, the gun barrel will go up and down. And as I talked about with the review of the KV2, again, Meng's Sherman has one set of road wheels. This actually has 2. The real Sherman, of course, has 3. So this has, this is kind of splitting the difference. So this way we have more of a realistic design while still being chibi. And you can see a little bit of detail there on the back for where the idlers fit. Turret, early type of turret, looks good. Once again, hatch is unfortunately does not open. It's kind of a shame. Down in here we can see the rods and the pins. Once again, the rods for the front sprocket to go on, which is nice. That's kind of a load bearing thing. And the pins for the track links. Here are the road wheels and the sprockets. Well, and the road wheels and I guess one of the inner sprockets. Kind of strange, but whatever. And then, of course, here's the outer version of the suspension. And then here's the turret. Or not the turret, the gun barrel. And ventilation in the back. Travel lock. It's kind of nice. And I'm happy to report also, which I was kind of worried about this. I was hoping that they wouldn't just make generic tracks for everything. They would all have the same tracks. I was worried that would be the case, that to make the tracks all movable, they would just come up with just a basic track design that would apply to all of them. But thankfully, that's not the case. They do actually have separate tracks. So these here are a reasonable, simplified facsimile of the metal cleat Sherman tracks. So, dump that out. Once again, if we look here on the bottom, you can see here. Here's once again, you kind of see the string holding the individual tracks together. But really nice. Just love that. A lot, and not nicer than the really tight rubber band type tracks on Meng's design. So let's do a quick little comparison here of this and Meng's kit, and kind of show the differences. Oh, and one more thing, as with the other instructions, these are once again full color. And again, on the back, showing where to apply the decals. Once again, water slide decals. Okay, so, as discussed, how does the Meng version of the Sherman hold up against this Doyusha version of the Sherman. So here I have my Meng pink Sherman that I did a few months ago. Yeah, this is not to be confused with the little resin cats that come in the later models. This was something made completely from scratch with using Sculpey. So just to answer that question right off the bat. So yeah, if we compare the two, we can see that the turrets are pretty close, pretty similar in size. One of the biggest differences that we can definitely see is that, as I talked about before, let me see if we can maybe lay this on its side like that and show this in comparison. We see that there's basically one road wheel set here, whereas on this one there's room for two road wheel sets. So a little bit more detail, a little bit more realistic proportions. So as a result, we can also see by that of course that the Doyusha version is going to be a decent amount larger, despite the fact that it has pretty much the same size turret. So with that being said, though, which you know, it's kind of cool in its own right, and then once again, it has the turret rotation gimmick. And that's really pretty cool too. But with that being said, though, the proportions of this are just so cute. You know, and you know, I don't know if in some ways it kind of wins because it's cuter or what. But then again, some people might consider that a loss. I really don't know. Until this is actually built and we can see kind of the finished product, you know, who's to say. But on the other hand, what this has going for it is that, of course, it has these track links, which are way better than these tight rubber band track links that are squeezed onto here so tightly that you know, the wheels, the rear idlers are almost bowing. It's kind of, let me see if I can actually show that. So yeah, it's a little hard to see, but there's kind of a slight bow out from there being so much weight involved, and you know, yeah, you kind of want to put some metal pins in there to strengthen it. So there's that. That's kind of an issue. But then we also have the case that, well, the fact is that we can actually put a figure in here, whether it's a cat or a real figure or whatever, or a figure of a real person. We can actually do that. On this one, you can't, unless you want to cut that out and do that surgery. Nobody's being posed inside of this hatch, so that's kind of a shame. Let's compare some of the other stuff here. So here we have the gun larger than this, which is kind of funny because this is a 76 millimeter with a slightly longer barrel. This is supposed to be depicting a short barrel 75 millimeter, but it's actually bigger. So once again, kind of, you know, it just comes down to how chibi-fied they wanted the proportions to be. Details are pretty similar actually for the suspension. It's very, very close. Maybe the edge goes to this because it's got slightly deeper cuts, which is nice. So, you know, kind of hard to say. Sprockets here, actually, I think maybe the edge for that goes to the Meng version. It's a little bit deeper, has a little bit better cut. And the other thing that the Meng version has going for it, once again, is just plain the proliferation of additional details that you actually add to it. Now, on this kit, on the Doyusha version, you do still add the actual hooks here and everything, just like on here. But there's just less overall detail. You know, this has the actual, you know, the on vehicle equipment. is all molded separately. On this one, you know, most of it's just plain either molded on, or in this case just plain missing, which is kind of sad. Also, you know, we can compare back here the tail lights. The tail lights on this kit are actual separate little lights with, you know, guards going around it. On this one, the tail lights are just simplified half circles. So kind of sad. So really, you know, it almost kind of turns into a bit of a wash, because this one you get the track links, so you know, there's just far more realism going on there with the track links than on this. You get the slightly more realistic proportions that you have by having the two sets of suspension junctions here, or of two sets of suspension rather than the one set. But then this kit, though, you get opening hatches, you get on separate tools, separate headlights and taillights, separate guards, you know. And again, if you're building a chibi thing, you might actually like the fact that this has even more chibi-fied proportions than this does. This, of course, also then does have that turret rotation gimmick where the gun raises and lowers. That's kind of cool, too. So maybe basically it comes down to, when all is said and done, this is probably a better toy, I guess. It's a toy you have to assemble, but it is a toy, I guess, nonetheless, because the box does depict running the tank back and forth to show the tracks in action. It has a gimmick where you turn the turret and the gun raises and lowers, whereas this is very much obviously a static model kit. And so it's meant, you know, it has that extra detail. It's toy-like in appearance, but it's definitely a real model. Now, of course, when it comes to that level of stuff, all of them are subjugated to Fujimi's sets of stuff. It just, Fujimi doesn't make anywhere near as many things as Meng does. Basically, the Tiger 1, a couple different variations of the Tiger 1, a couple of other things here and there. You know, basically, if you want like the ultimate chibi Tiger 1, you get Fujimi's version. But maybe I'll do a review comparing all three of those at some point. But again, right now I can only compare these two. It's kind of convenient that this is molded in pink also, because that way it really is an apples-to-apples comparison. So, that's kind of the difference when we compare these two. Volume 3, which, in case you were thinking it would have been the Tiger 1, it is not. Volume 3 is the Sturmtiger. It's kind of strange, since how the Sturmtiger is built on the Tiger 1 chassis. But for whatever reason, they decided to go with a variant first rather than the standard. So, if we take a look, we have here the lower chassis, the upper body, with the fenders molded on. Get a better look at that. So here we can see fenders. So it actually does, oddly enough, unlike some tank kits, actually does have filled-in sponsons, which is nice, since there's actually still some legitimate 1/35th scale tanks that do not have that. Notice also where the upper body is actually bolted on to the lower body. It's kind of nice. I don't know if you can really see that or not, to the bags. Once again, a little bit more road wheels than what you see on a Meng version. Actually has bolt detail in here for the final drives, which is kind of strange, because I'm not really quite sure how you're really going to see that. But still nice overall. Let's take a look at the casemate. Casemate has a nice design to it. Would have been, once again, would have been nice if the loading hatches could have opened, the back hatch, but once again with this series, no opening hatches, so that's just par for the course now. Here we have the front fenders, and of course here's where the gun will come out. By the way, sorry if occasionally I'm getting off of the getting out of the camera view here. I'm kind of doing this upside down. So next we have, here's where this is the road wheels and the sprockets and idler. Looks pretty nice. Hubs. And again, more sprocket detail here. The exhaust covers, the exhaust, the rear fenders. Actually has a separate jack, which is kind of nice. Because, you know, usually, once again, Meng has all this stuff separately, but on these kits, you don't really see that as much. And last but not least, once again, the pièce de résistance, the track links. And so, once again, you know, with this being a Tiger, the tracks are nice and wide, look really good. This is going to be like probably one of the things that's, especially on this kit, it's just going to really make it really pop, really come together. How nice they are. The other thing is, of course, so far at least, Meng does not have a Sturmtiger. Neither does Fujimi. So if you want a chibi Sturmtiger, this is the only deal in town as of this video. That being said, Meng will probably announce a Sturmtiger next week or something, but as of now, this is the only thing. But once again, you know, just having these nice individual tracks just really brings it together. Track, sag, and everything. It's going to look fantastic. This one, I think the other ones, I may actually, I'm kind of back and forth on as far as whether I'm going to do it in the whimsical style or the realistic style. But I think this one I definitely want to do in realistic style. That being said, though, the decal sheet's actually kind of funny because it does actually have like a lot of flames and stuff on it. Sturmtiger, the Sturmtiger design. In fact, let's look on the instructions here. We can actually show that a little bit better. So it shows here an angry burning tiger. Whoops. An angry burning tiger on fire. And then, of course, you can just kind of apply the flames here on top of the fenders. Pretty cool idea. Would be kind of neat to have that against like a, you know, maybe a red or something even. And for some reason, it's got penguins on the exhaust covers. So, who knows? Kind of fun. But I think I might do this in a realistic style. Let's see what happens. Okay, last but not least, Volume 4, Tiger 1. So, as always, once again, instructions. It's kind of strange that the instruction sheet on this basically shows you putting a dog on the side of the turret. Subverting expectations. And okay, so on to the kit itself. Again, we have the lower chassis here. Pretty much the same thing as what was in the Sturmtiger kit. Again, it's got the bolt detail and everything. And then we have the upper body. Once again, the fenders are actually molded to the top. Enclosed sponsons, thanks to the lower body there. But yeah, once again, unlike Meng, all the on-vehicle stuff is actually molded on. So it's going to be a little bit of a hassle to paint. On the other hand, it'll be a lot faster to put together. But yeah, if you want that added bit of detail, a little bit disappointing. Hopefully maybe somebody will release some aftermarket screens. That would be awesome to put there. And then, of course, once again, we've got the turret ring thing that will allow the gun to raise and lower as you rotate the turret. Speaking of, here is the turret. And once again, as is, sorry to be a broken record, but hey, I gotta review this stuff. No opening hatches. But aside from that, nicely shaped, nicely done. Kind of cool. This is, you know, by looking at this, you know, it's got good detail to it. It basically has the early Tiger cupola. So here we have, once again, as with the Sturmtiger, we have the road wheels, and our sprockets, the idlers, hubs. And of course, once again, the outside of the sprockets. The reason why you'll notice this one is enclosed and this one's not, the reason why is that when you pass the pin through, I think. The idea is that you put that and then you glue that hub on to close the pin in. But yeah, exhaust covers, rear fenders, exhaust pipes. And here is the mantlet. And it's got the Feifel style air filters that goes on the back. So these are actually rather nicely done. The air. And then it actually does have a shovel molded separately, so that's nice. So not everything is molded on. It actually has the smoke launchers, so that's nice. And of course, nice big slide molded, super oversized 88. Which is kind of funny because I think the gun on this gun is bigger than the 152 millimeter gun on the KV2, which is kind of funny. But for this being an 88, but everybody knows the Tiger. Hey, it's got to have the gun. So kind of nice though. It's all nice and slide molded in one piece like that. Pretty cool. And of course, once again, here's the tracks. Really nice. And once again, could show down under here. Pretty cool. And the decals. And of course, here's the pins and things to secure the tracks, as well as the sprocket, retention spring for the gun. So that's that. So final thoughts. How do these shape up? Actually pretty good. I think they're pretty nice for what they are. I mean, of course, the final verdict will come when they're actually built, but Doyusha pretty much doesn't disappoint. They make pretty good stuff. Their little tagline is leading the world in model technology. I don't know how true that is. I mean, they've been around for quite a while and made some pretty cool stuff over the years, so who knows. But either way, I think this is kind of a neat thing. It's fascinating because, as I said in the Sherman review, these are maybe a little more toy than model, as opposed to the Meng or the Fujimi ones. But then it has some very model-like stuff, because even though the box art depicts, running the tanks across the ground, with the hands and 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 it shows all this kind of stuff. It'll show here. Let's take a look at that, and then of course, it shows that. So, even though it shows it being run across the ground, and that you can do this kind of stuff, I don't know how much you really are going to want to do that. I don't know just how tough these track links are. I mean, the fact is they are plastic and there's little strings that holds them together. So, I think that's just more of maybe advertising. But who knows? I could be wrong. It'd be interesting to tack on some free old Modelismo, track some of these things. Once again, probably 148th would be the closest, rather than 135th. But on the other hand, despite being kind of toy stuff, it has like water slide decals, which is kind of interesting. It does not have stickers. So this kind of harks back to the days when Bandai, for example, no matter what they made, they included water slide decals. I'm a Gundam builder from like 1981, so I remember when everything had water slide decals, not stickers. So whether you were meant to play with it or whether you were meant to pose it or whatever, you got water slide decals. And that's how these are. So it's kind of weird that they're toy-like in one way, but then they have what's considered a very adult thing on included. So I heartily recommend these for what they are. And they're not very expensive. You can get them on HobbyLink Japan. That's where I got mine from. Its prices are going to fluctuate with yen to dollar, but expect to pay basically around 20 or so. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope that it's been enlightening in some way, and hope you hit the like, and hope you hit my subscribe button, and I'll try to get more of these things out the door at some point. So have fun, and if you hope to see you on the chibi modeling side somewhere, and if you build one and put it together, send me an email and let me know what you think. All right, till next time.